How you doing, man?
Doing well, doing well. How are you?
I'm good, man. So you and I have been talking for a while. I'm like, every time I see you at an event or something, you're always there. You're always at all the events, which is awesome. I'm like, man, we gotta get you on for an interview. We gotta get you on for an interview. So we finally made it happen. So I'm excited. So let's first start with like, where are you located? How long have you been in real estate? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, real quick, happy birthday.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks, man.
Congratulations. Very excited for you. Oh
I
man.
lived another year.
Hey, another trip around the sun. Yeah, so me and my wife and our two kids and our niece, we live up in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And then I have been a licensed agent for just 2 years and a couple months. And I started with EXP. So that's kind of like
Awesome.
my entire journey of real estate is happened in the last two years and a couple months.
I love it, man. So right now, guys, be thinking who in your world, not at EXP or with EXP, that needs to hear this in real estate within 2 years or so. Like I probably hear on a weekly basis, Nevin, like a new agent saying that they can't do it because they're new. So I love your story and I'm excited to unpack it. So
Yeah.
start with EXP, license within the last 2 years or so. How's RevShare going?
So ref share is going well. I think we're right at almost the 70, not quite there yet, but could possibly within the next month or so that we will be there. Especially with like my wife who shared some wins earlier is crushing it. So we're building a lot of momentum for her and got a lot of people in that like warm to working hot and got a couple applications out with a couple of, or at least one agent for sure who's a commercial agent. And so that's exciting. So we're very excited. RevShare has been covering our just over $2,000 childcare bill for the last like 6, 7 months. So that's been a huge blessing for us. And now we just moved. So we're in our new house. That picture you saw, we just moved into a new spot. And so RevShare is covering almost our entire living bill at this point. And so it kind of, it's a very good thing. It's very exciting for us to think like,
That's awesome.
just over 2 years ago, I got into this industry just out of desperation to make some money because it was in COVID, to being in this place now where we're really building something special that's really exciting with you guys and partnering with you, with Blake and Noel, and just Game Changers Nation as a whole, and this platform that EXP provides us and growing, right? So it's extremely exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's so cool. Like to think from 70 some agents, about to break 70, that you have, childcare paid for the last 6 months or so. Most of your basic living needs are paid for. That's what's cool to me. Like what I was talking about earlier, like helping people who take this serious, like drastically change their lives. Like, that's what I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
it's financial freedom. And you guys still got little kids, which is such a unique time I'm learning. So to be able to have that financial pressure relieved a little bit and to be able to spend more time, investing in the next generation and your family is really awesome. So 70 agents, how many FLA and FLQA?
So I'm at 10 FLA, 9 FLQA. So
Awesome.
it's been
Awesome.
it's hanging one shy of unlocking that third tier, which is where
Yeah.
like I think 40% of my revenue share group is at. So
Really?
yeah, it's gonna
Okay.
be a good day whenever that finally opens up.
Yeah. Do you calculate your missed earnings on your third tier?
Yeah, it's a little depressing. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
motivates you, right? Like it definitely gets you much more motivated and inspired to do, because it's like that big thing, right? If I don't get up and do this today, I am now missing out on an additional like couple $100 this week to $1,000 this week alone, right? So it's
Yeah.
like if I don't do what I need to do, that's going to happen. And if I don't do it again next week, it's going to happen again and again and again. So it's definitely a huge motivator.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I recommend everyone calculates the money they're missing because it is a motivator. I just recalculated my seventh level for the past 3 months today, this morning actually. Thankfully, the last 2 months I was over 40, but I did the last 4 months. So the last 2 months was over 40. The previous 2 months before that was not over 40, and that is a very sad moment when you realize that. But it helps you, like, it's just like, goal setting, vision boards and all these things. It's like you gotta track this stuff and you gotta put it in front of you, because otherwise you're just like, really essentially ignorant to what's going on. You're like, oh well, I got 9 FLAs, that's great, I'm doing great, I got 70 people. But when you're like, okay, if I get one more person to become an FLQA, I'm making an extra $2,000 a month, and that's pretty dang good. you know so that's cool. So when did you start taking rev share serious? Because I mean, most people
Yeah.
are like, I just got to figure out how to sell houses, and then they'll do revenue share. So talk about your mindset around that. You join
Yeah.
EXP. Did you get it right away? Talk about that.
Yeah. So it made sense to me to an extent because I was new. So I had no clue what any other kind of structure really existed yet. I didn't understand anything different. And like Blake is my sponsor, he's on this call as well. And I used to sit either in the background on the floor of his house or Joey's house, which is one of Blake's business partner, or with Joe. And I would listen to them EXP all over everyone for the first 3 months I was here, for like straight hours at a time. Like I would sit on the floor for 3 hours and I would just hear them just EXPing, literally. Like it was like the thing we talk about not doing, they hadn't learned yet, but they would just do it constantly. And the excitement that they had about this was beyond anything I've experienced with a business, right? And so I was like, what in the world? Like I got to understand this. And so I was exposed to this whole process right away. And it became very normal and natural for me because I was taught from day one to like, hey, you do a transaction, just ask them to coffee, get their opinion. Just ask, just ask, just ask. Now, it didn't really like solidify for me. Like I had no traction for a good 4 months, but I tried really hard. And then they actually gave me my first sponsor, like the first agent. Like they were like, dude, we see you working. We're going to help you out, just because we want you to have a win so you don't get burnt out on this. So they put an agent on me. And it was so exciting because that agent was actually producing. They didn't just give me a random agent. They gave me someone who was producing. And they sold some houses. And then I saw that first like $280 come through. I was like, what in the world? Like, this is crazy. That's one person. And so it got me a lot more excited. I had no confidence with it though, right? So I would hit this in spurts where I would reach out for somebody or reach out for like maybe a month, and then I would stop for 3. And then I'd hit it again for a month, and then I would stop for 3 or 4, right? And so that's kind of like, and that happened all within my first year. Like it was like kind of a roller coaster for me because I didn't know. That limiting belief was very heavy on me of like, I have nothing to offer. I don't know what I'm doing. And the reality is it's not like my knowledge of EXP hasn't necessarily exponentially grown since that first 3 to 6 months of being here, right? It just more so the belief that I am sold myself on this platform that EXP is one of the greatest opportunities for anyone to be a part of. And whenever that became more in my heart, it became a lot easier to talk to people. It became a lot easier to share this and be okay with it, right?
Yeah, I think that's why events are so important. Like that belief, and that's what changed for me when I went to my first conference. That belief in my heart that EXP is the real deal, that this is a vehicle that can change lives and help people create financial freedom. Then I went all in. Up until then, it was kind of like dipping my toe in the water. Like, is this gonna work? I'm not sure. It's virtual. So how did you get that belief initially? Was obviously you were exposed by these guys that were just running around the house with their hair on fire. And by the
Yeah.
way, guys, it's a theme here. Blake and them were like, let's just get together and do this. And now you're leading with your team, which is really cool. That's
Yeah.
duplication, which is awesome, and that's what we
Oh,
want to see as much as possible.
yeah.
But when did it really go from this looks like a good option for me? I'm lacking confidence. You got someone put under you, which I'm sure boosted your belief a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But was there maybe a pivotal moment where it was just like, man, this is like do or die. Like if I don't do this, I'm literally letting my financial dreams die.
Yeah. I think it's hard to put a pivotal moment of like, if I don't do this, I'll let my financial dreams die, of like exactly when. I know it happened in that first 12 months of being here. Because so a little bit more background before this. So we were pastors and missionaries. And when we came back from being missionaries, our last time was over in Costa Rica. We moved back and we had nothing at the time because we left to move there and live there. So we came back with absolutely nothing. And I was terrible with finances and like managing finances. So I put our family in a place of like $36,000 of unleveraged, useless debt, right? And we had, when we came back, we had no beds for our kids kind of thing. We were borrowing cars, all of that. So I was in a great state of desperation to provide for our family. And I mean, if it wasn't for, like, because we came back probably 4 or 5 months before COVID shut everything down. So I didn't even have a job long enough. And the job I did have was 1099. So I couldn't even collect unemployment whenever I lost that. And I had nothing. And then my wife worked part-time at a gym here in a cafe. So we had just a little bit from that. But like we had absolutely nothing. We were dependent on everybody else in order to eat to an extent, in order to, for cars, everything. And so that's what I got my license out of. So that state of being like, if I don't do this, that was there, I think, in the beginning, right? But there was more focused on trying to sell homes and build that traction, but it was almost equally focused on revenue share. And once revenue share became even a bigger part, was somewhere closer to the end of my first year, after we had a couple opportunities where like I have a gift set of doing videos. Like that's something I used to do in freelance to help supplement income for our family, was video and marketing. And so I started through the encouragement of Blake and Joey and Joe and like my support group and my sponsors and my business partners here who were pouring into me. I was hosting a free class on video throughout COVID for once a week, where I would teach people how to create videos from their phone for free. I would walk them through the process. It was a 2-hour window where I would just sit with people, and it usually was only like 2 or 3 people would come, and I would sit and teach these agents, right? And I did that for week after week, a couple months there, right, throughout all of the winter of in Minnesota, which is a pretty long time. And I built some relationships with some agents here, and one of them one day was like invited me out, and this is whenever I realized I could actually do this. As an agent, was like, hey, can you help us make a video for a house? Like, we're trying to, I'm struggling, but you're like 40 minutes away. Can you just drive down and help us real quick? And I was like, sure, I'll come help you. So I came, I showed up, I created a video for them. They loved it. And we walked through that process. And this is like the moment when it became like, oh, I could do this. And my mindset began to shift and my confidence began to get into it. Like, no, it's not necessarily about me. It's like I don't need to limit my lack of time, because I'm still within my first year of real estate at this point. Like I haven't even crossed my year mark. And I met with them, I did the video, and I was like, hey, I'm really curious. Can we just talk about business maybe later? Right? I would love to just just talk with you guys about business and real estate. And there's 3 of them, mind you. It wasn't just one agent. There was 3 of them kind of hanging out together. And the one agent who I was most connected with, she said, oh, we're good, whatever, and kind of blew it off. And I was like, all right. And then she's like, well, what do you want to talk about? Like, you helped us. I was like, just what it could look like to partner up even, and collaborate over here on the EXP platform. So, well, honestly, I've been talked to by Blake and Noel. Blake is my sponsor, Noel sponsored Blake. So I was like, oh, she already talked to 2 of my people, so I can't even lean on my group as far as added value, because she knows my group at this point, right? And so I was like, oh, crap. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, honestly, her name's Haley. Haley's absolutely a huge blessing in our lives. We love her to death and her group of ladies, right? And her whole team. And I was like, Haley, can I just practice presenting and just practice this with you guys, just so I could build my confidence? Because I really want to grow and I just need some help. Can you let me practice? And she was like, yeah, sure. We'll come by the office on Thursday. And so I was like, sweet, thanks. Like I was so excited, right? Hyped up. She shows up to the office with 2 of her agents, 2 of her friends. And I'm clueless, right? So I'm still new in this, and I'm not like anything crazy. And I sat down and like, here, you can see my TV over here. So it was at the office, and I was like, I sat closest to the TV as I could. And I was like, thank you guys for hanging out. We did some small talk, right? And I was like, all right, cool. Like, thanks for letting me practice this presentation. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I hit play, and I turned around, and I never looked back. I just turned my back because I was so scared and nervous at the time that like, I didn't want him to ask me a question. I didn't want him to interject. And I would laugh when Brent would say something. I would interact with Brent on the TV. And I was like, I'm not looking back. And I'm sure if they knew how nervous I was and scared of that moment, they would have been like, what the heck? I'm never going to come with this guy. But I was just like staring at the TV, right? And then sure enough, afterwards, Haley and Lacey, like they were pretty excited about it, because that was the first time they've ever watched the model, right? It was the first time they actually sat down and looked at that versus just being talked to. So that like really sold me, because by this point of the year, Blake, Joey, and Joey, like my biggest influences in growing this business, have pivoted to trying to watch the model with everyone versus talking about it, right? Like their whole new model was, we don't talk about EXP. It's the opposite. It's like Fight Club, right? It's the opposite of CrossFit. Like you don't tell anybody. You just, all right, cool. You want to talk about it? Let's watch it, right? Let's take a dive in. And so
that's amazing.
Yeah. But then they got excited. She came back 2 days later and brought 5 other agents with her. And then she came back with the intention of trying to get them peaked because she was already, I think, sold at that point. And now she was just convincing her whole tribe to come with her. So it was, but that's what set it off. And that's what kind of like began to be like, oh, you could do this, right? You don't need to be a top producer.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that story because it's just like, it's so simple. Like everybody can do that. Like, hey, let's just meet. Would love to just share the presentation with you, get your opinion on it. Would love to practice. Like just very low pressure. Anyone can do that. And then, when you tell a story, just thinking about like the nerves that you would have had, like, it's just the visual is just so funny. I just love that story. And like you did the right thing, you watched it with them. I remember when I was setting up the presentation a lot, as like the primary way to do it. I had a video that I uploaded to my YouTube. It was like a Brent Cove presentation or something. And on YouTube, you get analytics and you can actually track how much of it that they watched, on average. And the average, it was like a 40-minute video, and the average watch time was like 6 minutes. And like at the time, like there was other people using my link. So there was a couple hundred views on there, not all me, but other people that were using the link. And I'm like, so that was a couple hundred opportunities where the average person watched 7 minutes. No one's joining EXP after watching 7 minutes of any presentation. They're just not. And what happens, what's even worse of them not joining, they think they know what it is after those 7 minutes, and then they won't come back. Then you just blew your shot. So like you sat there, you got to watch the whole thing, and they joined. And that's what we find, man. You get them to watch it, do a 3-way call, like you're probably going to sign up half the people you get to go through that whole process. So that's cool, man. I love that. That's good stuff. So fast forward, today we're sitting here with, group size that it's going to break 100 any day. Like, where do you see yourself in 3 years?
Ideally, along the coast and either in Mexico, most likely.
Location freedom.
That's the big goal for us, is to be back in Latin America and ideally on the coast. Would love amazing. That's a huge goal for us and the organization to keep growing and to be there. So we pivoted a lot. Like we're spending a tremendous amount of effort and money on even ourselves, me and Tasia, to just develop our own skills and who we are as people, but who we are as leaders, so that as this grows, we can provide the appropriate support to people and systems, and like plugging into everything Game Changers Nation has and that you guys have created, that Lars and John even put into this, that Blake and Joe and Joey have put into us, and Noel. Like we're trying to plug into as much as that as possible and get our crew plugged into it as well, because we realize, like, I think there's a lot of power in staying plugged into the big group as a whole. And because we had those ideas and we've talked to other people who break off and start their own groups, right? And they begin to, you begin to spread out like a tree, right? And so we're going to still focus. We're still there to be with our agents and do as much as possible. But also, I think the scalability of it all is being, instead of becoming a vital role in just one organization, like become a vital role in the overall thing, right? And so trying as hard as we can to stay connected with our business partners and grow together with them, and even help across line, share everything from here to there. So like we're putting a lot of effort into ourselves right now in developing that and building those relationships for the sake of everyone who partners with us, right? And everyone who runs alongside us in this, so that they can also grow and find that freedom that we've been able to do it. So
I love it. I love it. Great vision. So you're living on the coast, you're in Latin America somewhere. Like what's going to be like the point where you do that? Like, because my wife and I were like, we wanted to go on a motorhome trip around the country, and for us to do that, we wanted to hit 500 total agents, because that was our 5-year goal. It happened in 18 months, which is awesome. What's like your official date, your official like dollar amount in rev share? Like what is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our goal was shifting earlier, probably quite a few months back. Because like when we went to build the first year, which was 2021, I had 5 agents with us. And then build this year, we were already over 60. So that was it was a big jump, a big increase in just a matter of 12 months. And so before build happened this year, I started to write down, like, our goal was to try to scale and grow to 500 agents by June 15th next summer. So we're doing everything we can with that. But part of that vision was to help everyone on our front line get at least 5 to 10 new agents by the like March of this coming spring, because we know this is moving season. So that's why we're taking time every single week, multiple times a week. Like we'll connect with our agents to be like, who are your people, to the point to where like, if I need to, I'll call their agents for them, with them right there until they build that confidence, until they do it, because I'm not too big to do that, right? Like someone, I know like at first a lot of people are like, do only what's repeatable and doable. I was like, well, this is repeatable. If I could help do this with somebody and they feel really confident and know how to teach somebody else, then there's the duplication piece, right? So we're trying
that's
really
cool.
hard just to dedicate most of my time is towards something along the lines of that, with helping who we have now grow as far as, and still reaching out with new agents and building those relationships. So the goal is next winter is to be moving back down south across the border, trying to get down there to Mexico. So that's our goal. We would have been at EXP for just over 3.5 years at that point. And yeah, and it's no secret. I think our whole team knows that. Everyone we're partnered with knows that. Everyone we talk to knows that. And so we're definitely not hiding away from that. We're being like, we want to be held accountable, and we want it to have that pressure of like, hey, if we don't get up and do this daily task today, our big thing is like, we don't get to live our dream. Everyone knows we didn't do what we needed to do to get there, that we kind of failed and dropped the ball. And I'm like, no, like we're going to do this. We're going to live out of this, and we're going to do what we need to do today and tomorrow and then the next day. And it's just that discipline of staying with it and touching Blake, wait, you moving?
Yeah, I love it, man. Living out your dreams, that's inspiring others. It's interesting with this opportunity. It's like it allows you financially to live your dreams, but that yet some people are still afraid to live it. You got to take hold of what's available and have the courage to go pursue what you want. And you guys are doing that, which is awesome. I wanted to ask you guys quick too, if you have any like recommendations just around like, mindset stuff. You said you're investing a lot back in yourself. Is there certain books that you'd recommend, podcasts, conferences, like anything like that you want to share as a resource?
Some of my favorite books to help is like Willpower Doesn't Work. Like every book that y'all recommend, I think I've read. So go back through any
That's
recommendations
awesome.
in the previous videos. They're being recommended for a reason, and they're great.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to push myself to invest into a book a week, whether it's reading or Audible. And if I could do both at the same, I'll do both, because some of them I have a hard copy and the Audible version. And I did pay the extra $14 to get 3 extra credits or tokens on Audible. Like it was worth those investments, or like whatever it was to get a couple extra, like I was fine with it. I feel like it's definitely coming back and just tenfold, like that little investment in myself and in that. And then, so Willpower Doesn't Work was a big one. I read most of all of Grant Cardone's books at this point, and I think those are all great just for almost getting your head in the mental space of like taking action, right? Because like he's like very extreme action taker and very over the top and like gratuitous with it, right? But it is more like it does create a shift inside you, right? It does create a shift in even your approach in conversations. Like I took every one of the Cardone classes that popped up on Workplace. I went through every single series. The whole month it was there for free. Like, why not? Like I sat through all of them. My favorite ones are the cold calling ones. Even the one that's been on just repeat, I think is still there today, is just like staying motivated, right? 100 ways or whatever. It's been on there for like 5-6 months now. But even that one, like that was a great one. But all of it, like I did all of those things, plugging into the calls. And then the next biggest thing for mindset was just actually calling people, like actually having conversations and experimenting with it. I know, I can't remember where it was. Maybe it was so I do have GC Attract. So that's part of our follow-up. Like I know Tej just talked about, she's really great at follow-up. So we're trying to pivot all of our stuff onto that platform right now. It is, so I'm very excited as we build that out with GC Attract and Mars and everyone in there. But they shared like a 10-minute video that John had an interview with someone that took them like thinking 18 months or 2 years, something really, really long to get his first agent to come with them over at EXP, right? Now he's at 1,000 or something. But in that video, like the guy talking, sharing his story, he was like, he had this analogy. He's like, put in time to learn what you're doing, then experiment with it. Like just
Yeah.
experiment different ways to have the conversation. Is experiment with ways to pique people's interest. And like I'm extremely grateful. I'm excited for the day Tasia gets to share and share what she says and what she does to get people. But like we just played with the scripts we used. We tried everything we've heard from everyone who's ever shared. We tried everyone else's lines. We tried everyone else's suggestions. We've done it all. And we're going to keep doing new things, but we just kept experimenting until what felt most natural for us. And then the whole goal was then is like, how do we teach everyone with us to what's the best way to cold call someone in a way that's going to allow them to feel like, oh, you're authentically coming at me, right? Because I carried that guilt of like, I have to have a relationship with you before we could talk about business, right? That's like the weirdest guilt I ever felt, but I felt that a lot when I was first starting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it finally I think it was partly in one of the Cardone books. Honestly, I think it was from one of the Cardone books. He's like, everyone talks about like, I gotta become your friend, get to know you, your kids, all this stuff before I could ask you for business. And he's like, I think that's one of the things that helped me get over that mindset, honestly. And he was like something about squashing that kind of mentality and being like, no, like just develop a business relationship with the people you're talking to. Like that is completely okay and acceptable. It's okay to just have a business relationship. It's okay
That's
to
a great
approach people.
point.
And yeah, I think that was a huge game changer within us and even me and Tasia and our crew, because it was like, hey guys, you don't have to be everyone's friend. It's okay. Like, cause like I look at everyone in the organization with me, above me, next to me, below me. And like, I'm not real good, close friends with them all, but I'm definitely have really great business relationships with them.
Yeah.
Right. And some of them we will hang out outside of this, and others of them, it's just like, hey, when we talk business, you know, we do catch up on family, but we focus on what is going to help them get to their next level. Right. And that's a good thing. That's okay. You know, so for everyone who feels weird reaching out to people, it's okay. And on a practical note, to give you something, Tage, is it cool if I just share kind of what we call everybody with? I feel like, yeah, okay, I see her now, give me a thumbs up. So when we call, so if you want to write something down, write this down, right? I know John, he has the other John M, I can't remember his last name. He does a lot of cold calling too. He shared a script with us, but this is literally all we say when we call people. So we call, they say hello, we act like we know him. I'm like, AJ, he's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, it's Nevin with the EXP Realty. How are you doing? They usually say something, right? And at that point, I always say is like, hey, we're calling because we're meeting with local agents, right? We're just meeting with local agents, see what you're doing for the shifting market. And I ultimately see if there's a way for us to partner up or if there's a way for us to help you in your business. If we treat you to coffee or lunch next week, would you want to get together? And that's it. Like, that's all we're really saying for the most part. I mean, there's a couple little objection handlers there, but it keeps it authentic because they're like, no, I'm happy where I'm at. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm staying here. Oh, that's so good. I'm really happy you're there. But again, we'd love to see what you're doing for the shifting market. And if we get at least help you with your business in any way. And then that usually opens up that next level of meeting with you. Because we've been told no so many times, right? And Tasia will probably share some of these stories, but I'm going to share the one with our commercial agent who has that application. He was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm never leaving. I'm really happy where I'm at. But she's like, oh, that's fine. Stay there. We just want to meet, just at least network and see how the business is going. We show up, and for 45 minutes, he told us how much he was unhappy where he was at and how he wanted to know more about EXP and what we're doing. But on the phone, he was a hard no. Like, I thought we were just going to waste an hour. I really did. But we showed up and it was the complete opposite. So that's it. Like, it doesn't take a lot. It's very authentic. You could do that without feeling sleazy, without feeling salesy, and it's an easy way to connect. Works with your friends. Like, if AJ was my friend and I was using that script with AJ, how's it going? Hey, how's it, whatever, do our little small talk catch up. Be like, yo, dude, let's meet up. Like, let me buy you coffee. I want to see what you're doing for the shifting market, how you're handling it. And bro, I want to see if there's a way for us to partner up.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing about EXP in that opening line. They already know it. But by not saying it, it keeps them open-minded. It keeps them in a good state, and it allows it to be easier. You don't feel gross. You feel simple. You're authentic to yourself, because the reality is I'm only calling all these agents to partner with them, right?
Yeah.
And so it allows us to just be real to ourselves and that authentic piece, right? If you're there at a build, they talked about like authenticity being the strongest frequency, right?
Yeah.
And then that allows it to stay there, right? And it allows us to connect. And so now we're doing that with our agents every week. And now we got like 10 to 15 people hopefully eventually our goal is to have 20 to 30 people with us every Wednesday making
Yep.
these calls, because then we set a standard. You have to call at least 5 dials. It's not like you have to connect with 5, you just have to dial 5 numbers.
Yep.
Right? Like it's not that hard. And yeah, but that's my
gold,
practical
man.
help for today.
Yeah, I hope everyone's writing that down. That's huge. I love your mindset around that business relationship. You know, the people that you really want to partner with are busy, they're crushing life, they're crushing business. The last thing they want is to, you know, do the dance of trying to build rapport about, you know, everything personal. They want to know why you're calling, how can you add value to them, and then, you know, they might meet with you. So that's a great way to look at it. The way you positioned that thought process was really good. So keep sharing that message, because that's the truth of the matter. So a couple questions here and we'll wrap it up. Somebody asked, and if you guys got questions, feel free to put them in there. We'll go rapid fire. Nevin, someone's saying, thank you. They're new. Keep crushing it. You're motivating them. One person was asking, what video are you using for the presentation?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was just all we had access to is Brent Gove. Now we do a combination of Brent Gove, Lars's model explaining that presentation he does on Wednesdays for just the 9 minute. So it's just kind of whatever feels most natural.
Cool, good stuff. And shout out to the event happening that Blake mentioned. They put the link in there, but if you didn't check the chat, it's unbreakableevent.com. Everyone's welcome, unbreakableevent.com, Kansas City. Cool, man. So you gave some practical advice. What would just be like, you know, a little uplifting piece of advice you could give to somebody, and then we'll wrap it up.
Uplifting? Oh, man.
Uplifting, inspiring, motivational.
Yeah. I think we go back to your love letter. I want to reference that again. Is there's this his name's Viktor Frankl, right? He's I believe like the psychologist, like big thinker kind of guy, right?
The
but he
Man
has
Search
this thing,
Man Search for Meaning is his most popular book.
Yep, that's the guy, right? I know he kind of basically, I can't remember exactly what it is, but basically it has this this idea of like that I really took away from him is like, unless you wake up with this important project, this important thing in your life that demands your attention, that has stakes, right? That basically is that feeling of if that something bad will happen today if I don't get up and do this. It creates that vacuum in your life, right? That void, that place where it can lead to depression. And I'm supposed to be uplifting, right?
No, this is good.
Do the love letter. Like take the time to write that out. Take the time to do that, because it'll help you find that driving point, that story to lean into, that story to point your direct, like that point where you could direct your life towards. Because I know like for us, like that helps us a lot. Like we will be the first to tell you, and my wife, when she shares, she'll tell you this, like there is not a single day that she says, I'm excited to call somebody. Like it is literally, it's torture emotionally, it's torture mentally, it's torture like in every way you can imagine. Like it could feel that way. And I know AJ, you probably relate, like I've heard all the times you called all the FISBOs, the expires. Like, it's not like I'm like, let's do this, hey. It's like, no, it doesn't feel that way. We've never had an agent be rude to us, by the way. Not once. No one's ever been mean. But yeah, it feels that way. You look at Ricky Caruth, you look at Grant Cardone's trainings, you listen to everyone, they all talk about how that is a normal feeling. But it's like when you have that story to lean into, you have your love letter to drive you, it'll keep you going, because you'll remember, you'll have that big why. Well, like, this is my why. I told my wife, I told my kids, I told my husband, I told my friends, I told whoever I needed to tell that this is what we're going to, this is why I'm doing this. And if I don't do it, then X, Y, Z happens. Like now you know what's at stake. So make that clear, take the time to do it, find a place that is, you know, inspires you, that creates inspiration, move before you sit down to write it, sit down, write like crazy, go nuts as you write it down. We've done this, you know, I've done it with AJ in person here in the Twin Cities before. I've done it separately from that. It's incredible. So definitely take the time to do it. And then I think out of that, you'll find it, right? And then take the step.
I love it, man. Great advice. And that's Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. That book was written basically out of the Nazi concentration camps, which he was part of. So if anyone can find meaning in life, it's Viktor, who was part of the Nazi concentration camps, unfortunately. What good advice, man. That really speaks to me, because every day that's a present thought that I have is really finding something in my life that's meaningful that I can work towards. Because like Tony Robbins says, he always says a key part to happiness, or really happiness, is progress, progressing towards a worthy goal. And sometimes we can get lost in the day-to-day grind and not have that. And then there's this vacuum in our life. And even though we seem successful, there's still that vacuum. So you got to wake up. Like you said, if you don't do that thing, you feel like you're like failing or missing out on something. And revenue share towards your financial freedom could be that thing right now for you. So this was awesome, man. Tons of value. So good. We'll definitely get you back on next year again. And in the meantime, we'll get Tasia on and get more tactical with the calls and stuff. So great content. I'm excited to watch this one again. We'll see you, buddy.